You know, there's been a lot of negativity, admittedly, between all of us YouTubers lately. So I thought it would be nice to try to put on my optimist hat for the day and say, let's do the 5 things Plarium really does well in this game today. Yeah, and $200 says that we at least get one. How much did Plarium pay you for this video? Because you know me, you know how often I pull my punches. You know what they do really well in this game? They actually completely nail the concept of a good graphical mobile game. It's very rare for me to see games mobilely that manage to put what I would say a good looking style and have it not either look cheesy, outdated. It's not easy to get good graphics into a mobile platform and also get kind of the aspect ratio correct. I do think they nail it. I like the camera angles. I think that the size of the characters in proportion to what the bosses are quite right. I also think that the design of the characters tend to be pretty good. Now, granted, if we wanted to be negative, I could say, you know, they repeat skins and all that. That's a separate issue. This is a positive video. I actually think that when they design their characters, the skins look good. I think for the most part, they do a good job at what it looks like with these characters. And for the most part, when I see a character I really like, I want that character. I think they look good. I think a good example of this would be Crypt King Grawl, for example. He may not be one of the best characters in the game, but he's one of the characters I want the most in the game, strictly because of how good of a job they did when they designed that character. So for me, I'm going to say number 5, and probably for a lot of you guys too, is going to be graphics and art. Their artists nail it. The graphics look good. Visually, this is a very appealing game. The other thing that they do good is an obvious one, which is their characters. They do a good job with their characters. And I'm not talking about art like we just talked about. I'm actually talking about the kits of their characters. Now, granted, there's some argument to be had on the balance of such kits, but what I'm more talking about here is the enjoyability of using them. For example, there's a epic in the game under the High Elves called Royal Guard. Now, Royal Guard has a move called Takedown, and when he uses it, it's a giant. He does like a 360 AoE move, and it just hits for a ton of damage. It's enjoyable to watch happen every time it happens. I use 2 of these characters, and my favorite part of when I'm doing the dungeon run is watching both of them use this move. Something about it is enjoyable. So for me, I think they actually do a pretty good job with the characters themselves and making it enjoyable when you do get one of the characters you wanted and to use them. Okay, now it can be kind of difficult to get them maxed out and all that, but once you have the character, it's pretty fun to actually use that character in dungeons or something, you know, as a new toy. And also the other thing that is a secondary point for this that I think they do well is in other fragment collector type of games, which I'll give a shout out here to my game Dragon Champions, which is actually a pretty good game. In my opinion, it's one of the least greedy devs and one of the most free-to-play friendly games I've seen in a long time, which is Fragment Collector. So I'll leave a description in the top of this. You guys can click on the link and download if you want, if you're on mobile. But if you're talking about fragment collector type of games, when you go to collect a character, okay, they typically take time to acquire. Like in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, or even in the Dragon Champions, the game I just plugged, right? Both of these games require like 330 shards of the character to get them 7 stars to fully unlock them, and then at that point you have the full character. Whereas in this game, when you pull one out of a shard, you have the full character, you just got to upgrade them still. Whereas compared to the other games, putting the gear on them is what we would consider gearing out the character, whereas in other games, gearing them would be actually permanently putting gear pieces on them that are expensive. So I as a secondary point, I'm going to add this on here. I actually like how character acquisition is in this game, where you acquire them, and then that was the expenditure, and the other part is mostly just by playing the game, you level them up, or you can pay money to, you know, max them out instantly. And, you know, books are expensive. Sure, there's that point too. But I like the way of you acquire the character, you now have the character, you can use the character, okay? Now, you may need books and all that, but you still have the character. I like that a good bit. So for number 4, for me, I like character acquisition, and the way you actually use the characters are enjoyable. Each individual character in this game are enjoyable, I'll admit to that. Okay, number 3 for me is something that people may end up disagreeing on, but I'm going to try to make a case for it, and that's the new player experience. Now, As a mid-game to late-game player, if that's you listening to this and you're a veteran player or you're a longtime listener of the channel, hold on for a minute, because people like us, it's going to be harder for us to remember when we were new and the game was exciting, okay? The game is actually not that bad, right, when you start off. I'm playing free-to-play, currently on a separate free-to-play account, and what I've noticed is the missions, quests, and challenge systems actually give you a decent sense of where to go and how to progress. One of the most common things that I am asked when I'm on my live stream is, hey, I feel stuck, what should I do, okay? And my answer is always, look at your missions, look at your challenges, look at your quests, see if there's anything you can currently complete for that. And if there is not something you can currently complete for one of those, work on your characters so that you can. In my opinion, I actually think they hold your hand pretty well in the beginning to kind of walk you through it. And I wish they would continue the login rewards bonus, because when we had the login rewards bonus, that plus the bonuses of the campaign where you're getting all these shards in the beginning, plus the fact that they refill your energy every time that you leveled up, there was a lot of things that happened right in the beginning that kept the game new and exciting, that kept it fresh, and gave you the ability to have something to always work on. Now, that love of excitement in the early can fall off a little bit in the more mid to late game, but I do believe that they actually do a good job with keeping the game freshly exciting when you walk into it, and I think that's why they have such good customer acquisition into heavy expenditure ratio, and then in the end game they tend to fall off. But I think for number 3 for me is going to be, I actually think the new game, the new player experience is quite enjoyable for the average player who's not going super hardcore looking to spend all of their money. I think they do a good job with that. I'll admit to that too. Number 2 for me is the dungeons. I actually find the dungeons very enjoyable. I found them enjoyable in 2 different ways, actually, which I've discovered lately. On my main account, I found them enjoyable because it's felt like a puzzle. As you guys know, I spend money on this game, and I've had access to, the majority of the characters I needed, so it was more of a puzzle aspect from the WoW side of things. Being like, okay, well, here's all the different options I have. Let me put the pieces together so I have both the buffs and debuffs I need. I have the right characters I need, the damage, whatever it may be. Put them together, see how this works. Okay, that works, but it's slow. Let me try this team. And the dungeons for me have been a different experience than what I've experienced on my free-to-play account. I really have been enjoying doing my free-to-play account because what it's doing is it is opening my eyes to multiple different styles of enjoyment for this type of game. On my free-to-play account is compared to on this where it's more of a puzzle of the characters I have. On the free-to-play, it's kind of more of a challenge of trying to figure out what is even possible for me to accomplish. It kind of feels like, this is going to be a reference that only a few people understand, but it kind of feels like an old school RuneScape when you have an Iron Man account, where you're like, this is just what I have, this is what I have available. There's no shortcuts, I can't purchase anything. I am just going to have to use what I have and try to figure it out. It's kind of the challenge aspect of it as a 100% free-to-play, or even as a minnow, I suppose, who maybe just buys the raid pass or something, that is enjoyable in a different way. I would say that it can become frustrating if you allow yourself to be the type of person that enjoys the other style. Maybe you enjoy the puzzle with many characters, but you are a free-to-play person. Or let's say you're somebody who spends a lot of money, but really just enjoys the hardship, trying to figure it out yourself aspect without just having all the pieces available to you. If you're someone who enjoys that, but you spend a lot of money, you may frustrate yourself, just like the person who wants everything, but they don't spend any money might frustrate themselves as well. So I would say try to match your expectations to the style of gaming that's going to be relevant for your level of expenditure, if you can follow that train of logic. So that's what I've noticed from having 2 different style of accounts, and that is going to be my number 2 on this list. And number 1 on the list, of course, one time no whammies, is that they have done a fantastic job at making a super exciting, dopamine-inducing shard opening type of game. I think number 1 for me is that this game, love it or hate it, has brought more or less the excitement of gambling into the gaming, especially the mobile gaming world. Now, that's going to be a whole pile of emotions for a lot of people. Okay, love it or hate it. I actually am quite indifferent. I don't really care. I'm going to let everyone else figure that out. For me, I'm Darth Microtransaction. I enjoy wailing out in games. It's been fun for me. I probably wouldn't have been successful with this channel without that style of game. So for me, that's my number one. I actually kind of like the straight up shard opening, you know, exciting, you know, crack addict when the gold lightning hits. Oh, hey, and just as an outro here, this is kind of a public service announcement. A lot of people have been saying you need like Royal Guard or Cold Heart or Ignatius or these really hard to get characters to beat Spider. Look, this is a much easier to do team. It's a little slow, but just if you guys don't have those hard to acquire characters, just run this team. It works way better. You know, I really don't want to even put it at the end here, but on the videos that I don't even say it, I give like 8, just not even half. Like, comment, subscribe.